That's pretty much it. Russians acknowledged the defeat in the so-called Second Bakhmut, and they relocated their forces somewhere else. And in addition to that and many other failures that Russians are suffering in the east, it is estimated that up to 90% of Russian elite forces have been already eliminated, with as many as almost the entire brigade of 900 soldiers being completely gone. And just in general, according to leader of Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he simply wants to end this war right here and right now. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage, and we begin with, as always, cringe material, which came for us from the Russian propaganda. And right here we have a Russian soldier, who apparently is pretty clean, not a single sign of dirt, and his uniform is absolutely brand new. But he says that he is a Russian soldier in the eastern front lines of Ukraine, and long story short, what he is talking about is that his unit was able to intercept a Ukrainian Leopard 2 tank, capture it, and then they started towing it to the Russian military base, but it unfortunately sank in the swamp, so maybe now Shrek is using Leopard 2 tank. But okay, let's make it look like we believe him. Because next we have another news, but this time is from the leader of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, who is saying that the Western countries imposing sanctions on Russia, this is basically the road to nowhere. And I mean, almost every single person on planet Earth already realizes that sanctions, they do affect Russia. Even Putin himself, sometimes he was mentioning that they do have effect on the Russian economy, but some people, they just cannot acknowledge the defeat. It's like, you know, these small kids, whenever they're told you lost, they just cannot say that, okay, thank you, you are much better than me, good game, let's move on. But instead, another pretty big group of people will behave exactly like kids, and for some reason the vast majority of them are located inside the Russian government. And then they'll start making hundreds of different excuses. No, this thing is not working, we're not going to cooperate with you, you are not going to survive with us, and don't even call me anymore, I'm mad, okay? And speaking about the Russian leadership, some of them decided to play around their Napoleon complexes to make them look significant and big. And so, for example, according to the Ministry of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, the entire Pacific Fleet of Russia has been called on duty unexpectedly. The main purpose of this military practice was to see if the Navy is ready to repel the enemy attack fast and successful. And I mean, it is the Pacific Ocean, so it's completely opposite side of Ukraine. So I think Shoigu was like, hey, do I see any enemies here? No. But should I do it? Yes. And well, anyways, speaking a little bit more about more serious news, recently the majority of Russian telecommunications providers, they started contacting their clients to update their personal information, because in case they won't do it, they might be disconnected from the service. At this very moment, it is estimated that approximately 20 million Russians have old information which is no longer relevant. And if you think about this, like, so what's the big deal here? Well, according to the recent law that Putin signed about the mandatory electronic notifications about the military summons, all the other organizations and companies, they are now working with the Russian military in providing them the updated address of the Russian citizens. And I mean, you already know where this is going. Basically, the Ministry of Defense of Russia will be able to contact major telecommunication companies and ask them about the real address of the Russian man and not the one that they have on file, so it will be easier for them to find them. And well, unfortunately, as soon as Putin signed this law and made this official, there was absolutely no reaction from the Russian people. Just take a look at, for example, the most recent events. Whenever there was this foreign agent bill which was about to be proposed in Georgia, there were protests. There are still ongoing protests in France about the increase of the pension age. And then right here, the president of Russia signs a bill which can allow him to mobilize anyone he wants and send them to Ukraine, and the reaction is non-existent. And so yes, if you also think that the regular people of Russia, they need to wake up, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel and share this news, especially if you have some Russian-speaking friends, because we need to do something. As President Zelensky perfectly said, the Russian people will be free whenever they can defeat Kremlin inside their heads. But unfortunately, at this very moment, we do not have any unified opposition. Because this guy Alexei Navalny, who is still in prison, right now he is feeling extremely unwell due to suspected poisoning, and his health declined rapidly in the last couple of days. And I mean, I don't think this is the coincidence that all these things are happening right now, whenever he's still in prison. And after all, the best thing Russian men were able to do was to just leave the country. Because according to the statistics, approximately 1.3 million people of the workforce of Russia, younger than 35 years old, they have fled the country in 2022 alone. Alright, and now let me give you just a couple more words about the updated support to Ukraine from the West, and then we'll talk about the situation in Ukraine and why Russians stopped and acknowledged the defeat in the second Bakhmut. And first of all, as you can see from this picture, this is the WS-61 Sea King helicopter that the UK provided to Ukraine, and apparently it is not just one, it is 3 of them. Then we have a picture of an American air defense system called Avenger, which is also being employed by Ukrainians in the front lines as we speak. Here is a video from Ukraine with an American Abrams tank, which as you can see is waiting to be used, most likely in the upcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive. And then right here is a very interesting statistics, showing that the country of Latvia has pledged almost half of its military budget supporting Ukraine, but just in the total dollar numbers, the leading country is still obviously America, helping Ukraine of more than $70 billion at the moment of recording this video. But on the other hand, Russians, they still continue to receive the combat machines as well, mainly from themselves, from their own museums. Such as, for example, right here, you can see a picture of a Russian T-55 tank, which has been used somewhere in the eastern front lines. And so yes, the weekend is here, it's Saturday, and if you want to see some very interesting documentary about the battle for Bakhmut, which is more than 20 minutes long, and it does have English subtitles, I shared completely for free with you on my Patreon. The link will be down below. Alright, and now as promised, let me give you a very brief update from Ukraine, and then we'll talk about why Russia decided to completely give up on Avdiivka. And first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians continue to reinforce and strengthen their positions in the southern Ukraine in the anticipation for Ukrainian counteroffensive. Then we go a little bit to the east, and as you can see right here, Russians were able to capture a little bit, I have no idea, like 15 meters of road in Vuhledar. Our next stop brings us along the Svatove-Kreminna front line, and according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians attacked here as well, but they were not able to make any significant progress. And then right here we have a video from Slavyansk, where a Russian missile partially destroyed a residential building and set on fire a couple apartments in the neighboring building. Next we go to Belohirivka, and as you can see right here, Russians were able to advance closer to this settlement. As we go a little bit more to the southwest, we can see that Russians expanded their invasion a little bit to the north of Orekhovo-Vasilievka, and then as we go to Bakhmut itself, we can see that they got a little bit closer to the city center. We even received this video from the Ukrainian side from the inside of Bakhmut, which shows that Russians are still using this in-series munition to attack Ukrainian positions. But nevertheless, according to this Ukrainian soldier who is fighting inside Bakhmut, the city still stands, Ukrainians protected, and are not planning to retreat. And as always, all the full and uncensored versions of all the footage I'm showing in today or any other episode will be available on my Patreon. The link is down below, and there's still 1 week of free access. And so yes, back to Bakhmut, where according to the British intelligence, Russian conventional forces and Wagner finally started cooperating, at least a little bit, and this is the result that they were able to advance a little bit closer inside the city. And as for now, according to them, it is Wagner which is primarily doing the frontal attacks with the support of Russian VDV or paratroopers on the flanks. In addition to that, Russians reportedly started receiving reinforcements inside Bakhmut, and where do you think these reinforcements come from? Well, that's right, they came from Avdiivka frontline, where recently it has been reported that Russians decided to completely give up on this so-called second Bakhmut, at least temporarily or maybe even forever, and they acknowledged the defeat. A part of this information came to us from the Ukrainian general Alexei Khromov, and he said that as a result of this relocation, and then Russians once again sending waves after waves after waves to advance in Bakhmut, they lost at least 4,000 soldiers in this last 2 weeks alone. In addition to that, the main conclusion as a result of this Russian commandment decision to relocate forces from Avdiivka to Bakhmut only confirms the fact that Russians are not able to launch multiple offensives across different front lines. They're only able to concentrate in some one place. And this is partially because Russia has been losing just so many people. Then they started using highly trained elite forces to fill in the gaps, and then they started losing them as well. And so now, as a result, they just collect basically whoever is left across the eastern front line and just send them all to one specific place, Bakhmut. And according to the Ukrainian and Western sources who rely on these Pentagon leaked documents, it is estimated that Russia might have lost as much as 95% of its elite forces which were dispatched in the east of Ukraine. And sometimes they were even giving us very precise information that one of the brigades of such elite forces of Russians, consisting of 900 people, lost approximately 775 of them. But another huge drawback of this incredibly ridiculously stupid tactic by the Russian military commandment to use elite forces to do the basic frontal offense is that these highly trained soldiers are now lost, and they will not be able to share their knowledge and experience with the fresh conscripts. It is estimated that the basic training of the special forces of Russia, such as for example Spetsnaz, takes approximately 4 years to be completed, and now it will not be accelerated because once again they won't be able to share their experience, so you can only imagine how much it will take Russia to replenish these specific military units. And well, guess what? Because of this and obviously many other, hundreds of other problems, the leader of Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, he wants to end this war right here and right now. What he basically says that Russia needs to have some concrete ending to this special military operation, and one of them can be, for example, the capture of Bakhmut, which, if you think about it, is exactly what I was talking about for the last couple of months. Russia will capture some specific settlement, and I was always referring to Bakhmut, and then they will make it look like that this is the entire victory of the whole this war, that Bakhmut was all along the main target of this special military operation, and now all the goals are accomplished. And this is exactly what Yevgeny Prigozhin is talking about right now. He says, let's capture Bakhmut and leave it as it is. We declare victory, we maybe, if Ukrainians still attack us, we fortify and just don't move anywhere, and pretty much that's it. The special military operation is over, because the Russian people, they need this relief. And I mean, yes, looks like that Wagner is already ready to give up and end this war, and this is even before the Ukrainian counteroffensive has started, so it only confirms the fact that Russians are afraid. And I mean, you probably remember that these leaked Pentagon documents, they kinda expose some weaknesses in Ukrainian air defense and some other things, but just once again, according to Yevgeny Prigozhin, this is nothing in comparison to the preparedness and support that Ukraine receives from the West. The counteroffensive is still going to be strong. And as a result of everything that has been mentioned in today's episode, I think it is pretty obvious to say that Russians are no longer able to attack anywhere except only one single place across entire Ukraine. Ukrainians, in the meantime, on the other hand, are preparing for the counteroffensive. They are going to launch it. It might be delayed, but it will still happen. And if you don't want to miss as soon as it does, just please consider subscribing to my channel. It only takes one click. The best way to support my channel is through my Patreon, where there is hundreds of uncensored footage uploaded every single week. You can also receive exclusive channel badges by becoming my channel member, or just simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found on the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you on Tuesday.